fabrics that can think. The COVID-19 pandemic has uncovered the critical need to survey the well-being of huge populaces continuously. Current methodologies of manifestation-driven tests are slacking markers and resembles driving just with a backseat reflect. We need ongoing frameworks that are prescient, future-looking and can convey driving pointers. Frameworks that can get to fundamental signs consistently and recognize unpretentious, practically indistinguishable little changes as early notice indications of medical problems of a person. This information of huge populaces could be corresponded in reality to precisely recognize the spread of the different rushes of a pandemic. No human-made articles are more presented to masses of imperative information than the garments we wear. In the event that we could show our textures to detect, store, break down, separate and impart this possibly valuable data, we could have a significant effect to well-being the executives. Luckily, brilliant apparel and progressed filaments and textures is a quickly developing field that will unquestionably change numerous aspects of our lives. Regardless of whether clothing, upholstery, drapes or bedsheets, we ceaselessly associate with materials across an assortment of individual and expert circumstances. The pervasive presence of materials near an individual makes them exceptionally helpful stages for UIs of distributed computing frameworks or well-being checking senses. Textures that are in day-by-day contact with people are presented to a lot of information. Significant well-being experiences could be uncovered if no one but textures could process or detect, store, investigate, induce, alarm and act while at the same time holding their conventional material characteristics like extending, turning, knittability and client solace. Ongoing advancement in fiber material science has set some inventive new utilitarian textures of things to come reachable. A new class of quick developing filaments that can detect, catch, store, measure and convey data, just as change tone and even give power. Artificially astute textures modified with AI calculations to examine designs in human action and thusly determine concealed examples and well-being experiences from the physiological information. Active parts woven into the textures that offer some benefit-added administrations, at last changing textures from products into cutting-edge foundation of administrations. Every one of the developments involve another class of exceptionally mechanical, quickly advancing fiber materials that appear as though typical filaments yet act more like CPUs with power, acoustics, material delivery, shading change and information yield works all contained in the strands of the fiber. It is anticipated that electrolyte gels, piezoelectricity, the electric charge that aggregates in certain strong materials because of applied mechanical pressure, carbon nanotubes, and medication compounds, among others, will discover their way into strands. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, have prevailing with regards to creating these savvy filaments through warm drawing. Ordinary models are strands that sense temperature through a thermoresistive impact. The difference in electrical opposition relating to the variety in temperature, identify synthetic compounds in sweat through chemiluminescence, the outflow of light as the aftereffect of a substance response, and sense contact and movement through the piezoelectric impact, capacity of specific materials to produce an electric charge because of applied mechanical pressure. Later work incorporates filaments that can distinguish the pulse through photoplethysmography, an optical procedure used to identify volumetric changes in blood in fringe flow, and optically convey this physiological data through noticeable light or electrical signs to a PDA. The ability to drive these shrewd filaments will perhaps come from collected poor quality energy from vibration, development and erosion, or put away energy in fiber batteries or supercapacitors as was explored in the past number of years. Up to this point, most examination has spun around detecting force and correspondence. Notwithstanding, there stays a requirement for filaments that can store and deal with data and can run programming to gather and dissect information. From astute strands to texture PCs. At the point when singular strands have the capacity to perform tactile, information stockpiling, force and handling capacities, an assortment of such filaments, a texture can be changed into a texture PC that executes projects and programming to gather information through fiber senses and store it in the memory part of the texture PC. Scientists at MIT have made the main fiber with advanced capacities, ready to detect, store, measure, investigate and derive movement in the wake of being sewn into a shirt. Educator Yoel Fink says that computerized strands make additional opportunities for textures to uncover the setting of covered-up designs in the human body that could be utilized for actual execution observing, clinical allowance and early sickness identification. It could likewise permit the wearer, for instance, to store wedding music in the outfit on the big day. Advanced strands add another data content measurement to materials and permit textures to be customized. The new fiber was created by setting many square silicon microscale advanced chips into a preform that was then used to deliver a polymer fiber. By precisely controlling the polymer stream, the specialists had the option to make a fiber with consistent electrical association between the chips over a length of many meters. The fiber is dainty and adaptable, can be gone through a needle and can't be felt by the wearer. The exploration group additionally concocted a computerized addressing technique that permits them to switch on the usefulness of only one component inside a fiber without turning on every one of the components. They had the option to compose, store and read data on the fiber, including a 767 kilobit full shading short film record and a 0.48 megabyte music document. The documents can be put away for a very long time without power. Man-made reasoning, AI, in textures. The textures we wear are presented to an assortment of acoustic, optical, electrical, biochemical and natural signs coming from our body, which gives valuable information. Tragically, we erase this information each time we wash the garment. To be valuable, the information should be caught and put away in the texture PC. Computer-based intelligence apparatuses and AI calculations would then be able to be utilized to distinguish explicit examples in this dataset and open the capability of customized medical care. The MIT scientists included inside the fiber memory a neural organization of 1,650 associations. They utilize the fiber to gather 270 minutes of surface internal heat level information and investigate how the information compared to various proactive tasks. Prepared on the information, the fiber had the option to decide, with 96% precision, what movement the individual wearing it was occupied with. With this insightful force, AI empowers the texture to reveal covered-up markers for infections and diseases continuously, just as distinguish significant relationships between human well-being and physiological boundaries. The AI calculations can likewise be utilized to help the human wearer of the texture. For instance, a misleadingly clever texture with a sensor for heart checking can conceivably distinguish minute deviations in heart signals before a respiratory failure. The fiber could likewise detect and make an individual aware of respiratory decay or convey muscle initiation or pulse information to competitors during preparing. Scientist Young and Chen, from the University of Massachusetts, fostered a material-based heartbeat checking gadget that can recognize obstructive rest apnea in wearers. They utilized the inherent property of materials to empower their gadget work. Materials minutely stretch and bend at explicit heartbeat focuses, for example, within one's wrist, as the beat of blood goes through the wearer's body. This accordingly permits metal yarn-based triboelectric gadgets at beat focuses to record the stretches and transducing the beat as a contact or tribo-charge signal. Textures is a stage for administrations. Researchers foresee that ultimately keen textures will finish in offering various benefit-added administrations. The data and allowances that keen textures determine about human movement and well-being make the way for a future where textures become an important wellspring of applicable and significant data. The combination of programming, figuring and detecting capacities in textures will empower us to separate data as well as structure a multisensory human interface, consequently changing textures into a stage for esteem-added administrations and encounters. Difficulties. Savvy textures are for sure encouraging, however a few provokes should be survived. A significant test is that textures that are worn and appreciated should be adaptable, machine launderable, protected, lightweight, strong, stretchable, breathable, excellent and agreeable. Material and pieces of clothing are requesting innovation stages because of their unpredictable and three-dimensional geographies and the huge, various mechanical anxieties to which they are consistently oppressed. These mechanical pressure bring about continuous and unavoidable delamination, scrape spot harm and additionally breaking in the microelectronic gadgets or associations that are implanted into materials. No single material response to every one of the models, and scientists should look to blends of customary strands and new imaginative filaments to make the new figuring textures that are innovatively exceptional yet additionally delicate to contact and as stylishly satisfying as conventional textures. What's to come? Brilliant textures will progressively turn out to be essential for our lives. Well-being checking gadgets as regular attire, bedding or upholstery have the guarantee of being promptly received and oftentimes utilized in a client's common habitat. From an information gathering perspective, shrewd textures and articles of clothing can give long